need to recreate the old things we love exactly as they were, so that they may be preserved and paraded, rather than being challenged or evolved. Before I delve into the nitty-gritty of Star Wars' CGI phases, I have to talk about today's sponsor, Aptio, in charge of code base. So what with it and the interconnected, interesting apps that make connections between different realms of Star Wars media. It's a big galaxy out there, and the interconnected nature of it helps to make it feel like a cohesive society. I believe that these peoples and places change through the many decades we've witnessed their stories, and I understand that if we revisit these places, it's going to become harder and harder to believe the same actors are the youthful characters forever frozen in 1983. But to my mind, there is little worth in trying to make performance of body doubles and de-aging CGI effects. It seldom looks convincing, even when millions of dollars are being thrown at it. Rogue One features a fantastic moment where the audience is reacquainted with an old villain from Star Wars past, Grand Moff Tarkin. Seen through the reflection of the Star Destroyer viewing deck, the voice and cinematography creates a charming glimpse into the role made famous by the late great Peter Cushing. And then, you've got a word of rumours, they just couldn't resist showing off the effect, could they? They couldn't resist. I know a lot of people like these effects and Tarkin's role in that movie, but for me, this just pulls me out of the movie with every frame it features this Count Olaf monstrosity. And it's even stranger when Tarkin is surrounded by a load of real people, not with CGI skins if they just become the Polar Express. British actor Guy Henry, known for Casualty, had the unique opportunity to give his own interpretation of the Cushing role. He was on set to give a Tarkin performance, only one that would later be used as one of many pieces in a VFX collage. His face was plastered with CGI, and any chance of a real performance was lost. As one of many pieces in a VFX collage. His face was plastered with CGI, and any chance of a real performance was lost.
The problem is Cushing's performance and Henry's performance didn't always match. That required painstaking, sometimes frame-by-frame adjustments, constantly refining the most subtle details you can imagine.
I really believe you should either do it, go the full hog and give us the character, or do what Revenge of the Sith did. It cast Wayne Pegrin and utilised a long shot and prosthetic makeup. Filmmaking techniques were used to bridge the gap between the new actor and Cushing. It's an understated cameo, but highly effective. I get a kick out of seeing it every time. Oh look, there's Grand Moff Tarkin with Vader and the Emperor. Amazing! In episode 3 as well. This moment in Revenge of the Sith shows the restraint that Tarkin in the mirror should have had. Rogue One then ends with a CGI replacement for Carrie Fisher. As if this wasn't morbid enough already, it is notable for coming out just a few days following the actor's passing. As if this wasn't enough of a sign that these special effects demos don't equate to a fraction of the charm and energy of the actors from which they ate the likeness of.
Palpatine's been after us.
Carrie Fisher was recreated again using a combination of removed footage and CGI composites in the sequel trilogy prequel, The Rise of Skywalker. I understand you want to find a way to honour Carrie and her work that made Star Wars a household name, but are a bunch of effects that skewer the line between photoreal and creepy the answer?
General, we're getting reports for raids at Festival Day.
It doesn't look anywhere near as peculiar as in Rogue One, but even when what's on screen of Carrie is cut from a deleted Force Awakens scene, you can tell that she has been reinserted into the new one. Like what?
My personal favorite, we have the mistake.
You're not going to believe how well Sam Trout is terrific. You can feel the disconnect between Carrie and the actors on this other set.
Choose 0% financing or $1,200 of customer rebates on the 2022 Chevy Equinox. And select Chevy Silverados are available with a customer rebate or finance rate as low as 2.89. More Chevrolet is on New Warrington Road, Pensacola.
Nope. Some things are impossible. It is impossible to capture Carrie Fisher's layer. I'm sorry, it is. It's a noble effort, but as a way to honour the late thespian, it baffles me. I really think it would have been better to gracefully retire the character between episodes 8 and 9. Yeah, we'd all love to see Carrie on screen one more time, especially at the end of the Skywalker Saga. But some things just aren't meant to be. There's no way to adequately choose it. Time simply moves on. Eventually you just can't play a certain character at a specific age. Old Han Solo played by Harrison Ford is great, and I love it. But it's a slightly different energy to young Han Solo. He moves differently. You feel that extra emotional weight, and all the years that have taken their toll on the actor and the character.
Yes, I do. Every time.
I also just don't think it's very good for working actors trying to make it. Like, back in the day when an actor became too old for a role, it was recast. There was no question of de-aging, the show simply went on. The torch was passed, and new generations of would-be stars and hard-working actors would get a shot to be the next Doctor Who or the next James Bond. Where would we be today if those effects had existed when it came time to say goodbye to a fan favourite? Eventually, it's time for fresh bloods to make iconic performances and movie magic of their own. If we begin to rely more and more on these effects, and insist on utilising the likeness of the same actors even beyond the grave, what hope is there for new talent to define a generation of movie making? In my opinion, The Mandalorian should have skipped the effects and gone back to the fundamental aspect of magic.
Absolutely, casting the dark art for television. Casting is just...
Saying it would only make it so.
You might admire the acting guys, you might admire the script. You either fall in love with or don't fall in love with. So casting is everything.
The creative team could have and should have searched high and low for an age-appropriate actor that could capture the mystique of the son of Skywalker. If this seems like a crazy idea when Mark Hamill is still available to play Luke Skywalker, we should look back and see how many times recasting has worked so well before.
Hello there.
The filmmakers cast a new version that would reflect the past, but embrace the future. McGregor's Kenobi is one of the single best things from the prequel era. He's responsible for countless iconic lines and memorable moments. Even people that don't like the prequels appreciate young Kenobi. I thought that the decision to go ahead with the Han Solo movie was unnecessary, as did a lot of people. But I stand by the decision to recast the character from the word go. If you're going to use a legacy character in their youth, save yourself the special effects blowout and cast an age-appropriate actor. Someone with all the emotional range and acting know-how to bring the character to life authentically. Alden Ehrenreich isn't Harrison Ford, but when he did the trademark finger point, as he exclaimed with arrogant glee to Beckett that he was a great pilot, I turned to my friend in the cinema and we both had the exact same look. That's Han Solo. I definitely wouldn't have enjoyed the movie magic if I was preoccupied with the wonders of de-aging Harrison Ford.
How about you? What are you going to do with your share?
Now I know what you're thinking. Nobody can replace Mark Hamill. No one has to. The whole point of a recast, when done right, is that it breathes new life into a character, not necessarily because they need to be altered. Hamill's Luke is obviously the quintessential version, the blueprint from which every Luke performance will aspire to, but because a new actor should bring their own energy and distinction to the role. That's what allowed us to go from Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan to Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan. Hell, that's what allowed us to go from Ian McKellen's Magneto to Michael Fassbender's Magneto. Both great. McGregor may have studied those old original trilogy performances, but he didn't just do an impersonation of what had come before. He made us believe he was the same man, whilst also bringing an entirely new persona to the table.
That's why I'm here.
And acting like recasts aren't a proven method, would X-Men First Class be improved by using Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen digitally de-aged? No, it would suck. Could you imagine a whole movie like the opening scene of X-Men The Last Stand? Could you imagine a whole movie like the entirety of X-Men The Last Stand? There is a movie called X-Men The Last Stand? There's 2 movies of X-Men The Last Stand? They're both...
Excuse me, I'm Eric Lang.
adventurer. Kill Xavier. Go fuck yourself.
First Class is only so good because of the energy between fresh faces, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, all the ways in which they parallel the original performances, but crucially, all the ways in which they deviate from them is what creates the spark of the film. James McAvoy is clearly never going to grow into Patrick Stewart. It doesn't matter. If it's all about maintaining the continuity, then I don't get that really either. If, say, the oft-mentioned Sebastian Stan were to become the post-Episode 6 Mando-era Luke, yes, that would mean that at one point he looked like this, but that really either. If, say, the oft-mentioned Sebastian Stan were to become the post-Episode 6 Mando-era Luke, yes, that would mean that at one point he looked like this, then he looked like this, then he looked like this. But is that any different to Anakin looking like this, and then looking like this? We just have to accept it. When Star Wars flip-flops between animation and live action in the same canon, we accept that one moment Anakin is a normal human male, and then the next he looks like a Thunderbird's puppet. That's not a diss on the animation, by the way, that's genuinely what Lucas wanted to make the characters look like. If we can just accept that all these stories come in different forms and shapes and sizes, then does it really matter if Luke changes his face a little bit sometimes? Would it matter if the recasting meant we got a feature-length live-action Luke Skywalker adventure with Sebastian Stan, with full dialogue and depth, and meaningful character interactions, and real action scenes?
Hey, buddy. Didn't expect to see you here.
Look, it's me. I'm here. Deal with it. Let's move on. Kevin Feige many years ago said that if Robert Downey Jr. were to lead the role of Iron Man, they would simply James Bond it. I absolutely think that's the right attitude to have. Did any of the recasts hurt the MCU? Do you watch Endgame and sit there thinking, gee, Bruce and Rhodey sure look different? No. You just see Bruce Banner and James Rhodes. When the performance is great, the actor will always dissolve into the role.
Stop lying to me!
There's only a few instances actor will always dissolve into the role.
Stop lying to me!
There's only a few instances where this should be a little bit different. I should note that Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther role should not be recast in the MCU. Out of respect for the actor's passing and what his performance gave to so many, it would be a misfire to replace him just to continue the story. The context here would make the situation very different to what we have with The Mandalorian.
Wakanda forever!
And if you need more proof that having a flesh and blood actor in the role of an iconic character is far superior to a special effect, just look at Boba Fett this season. My God. Boba Fett made a surprise appearance. Well, I say surprise, it looked like almost everything else, alongside other legacy characters like Cobb Vanth, Bo-Katan and Ahsoka Tano. But he also ended up regaining his armour, forming a bond with Fennec, and even sticking around for the Mandalorian's Grogu rescue. He came into conflict with the Mandalorian Creed, he stakes his claims, and he was involved in a lot of tasty action. This was all wonderfully brought to life by Temuera Morrison.
Did you take the creed?
I give my allegiance to no one.
I don't think anyone was expecting Boba Fett to factor into the second season in as big a way as he did, but it was an absolute joy every moment he was on screen.
You know, for a second I thought you were this other guy.
And in the final scene of the last episode, we got to see the bounty hunter usurp the Hutt throne and seemingly take over as ruler of Tatooine, a plot thread that will be explored in his very own miniseries. Think about what this does for Star Wars and directors. Temuera Morrison got the chance to play Boba Fett in the flesh, directed by Robert Rodriguez. This meant we got his unique style on full display for an epic 30-minute action extravaganza. We'd never get Robert Rodriguez's Boba Fett movie until now. And because that team-up worked so well, Rodriguez is returning for the Book of Boba Fett, executive producing alongside Favreau and Filoni, which means we're almost certainly going to get the man behind El Mariachi and Once Upon a Time in Mexico at the helm of at least one of the 4-episode run. Would any of this happen if Boba had come back in a composed way using VFX a la Luke Skywalker? Was it not the stoic charisma and frenetic action energy of Temuera Morrison that cemented this character as top of the list for a spin-off?
I appreciate its return.
I know Temuera Morrison isn't as...
Going in.
I appreciate its return.
I I know Temuera Morrison isn't as much a recast as finding a new actor for Luke Skywalker. Yes, Temuera Morrison is the logical canon choice to play Boba Fett, the ages will work out, but only because of the canon that was created in 2002. Before that, Boba Fett was a slim Caucasian male. He's only a beefy Maori brawler now because he's supposed to be a clone of Jango Fett, a character created during the prequels played by Temuera. Until Lucas went in and filled that backstory, we were led to assume Boba reflected Jeremy Bulloch, the original Blade Grade Boba Fett. Star Wars already has a precedent of altering its characters and even its continuity, well before the Disney takeover. If we hadn't have accepted the retcon of Boba as a clone of Temuera's Jango, we wouldn't have gotten all this very recently. When you look at the Boba Fett from the original trilogy to the one we have now, it is essentially a recast, just one that came with retcons over time. If you can believe that these two characters are the exact same person, then seeing a new iteration of any Star Wars character is fine. Maybe if Luke had showed up properly like Boba did, a physical presence that had flesh and blood conversations with the other characters, we'd be sitting on not only the book of Boba Fett, but the book of Luke Skywalker too. Because once you get past a fresh-faced actor pretending to be that iconic character, once you just see them for the character they have been cast to play, you can have a whole lot of fun. The possibilities with the character in this, as of now, unwritten time of his life are endless. We could see Luke face new adversaries, we could bring back Mara Jade, we could see him train a whole new generation of Jedi. I don't know about you, but if we can get all of that instead of a couple of stilted lines in CGI, I'll take that every single time. No matter how much you try to make movies realistic, they always will be theatre. If you need characters in your movie, cast actors to play them. It really doesn't matter what their bone structure is, or whether or not the character looked a certain way 5 minutes ago, the actor just needs to embody the heart behind the role. You don't need to de-age an older actor to make them like new again. You don't need to splice in unused footage to try and make us believe that performances can work on the great beyond. The effects might sometimes be downright incredible, but it limits what you can do with those characters, and visual effects must always complement the story, not put it in a bind. But I put it to you, do you agree with me? Would it be better to have an actor play Luke Skywalker, or just try to practically got an approximation to Hamill? Would you say the same for Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One? I have a feeling I'm in the minority here, but that's okay. If you likewise agree or disagree, let me know why in the comments below. And if you want more Star Wars videos from me, why not check out my first couple of reviews of The Bad Batch on the Full Fat Podcast YouTube channel. We're also doing week-to-week reviews of the latest releases, so if you want to hear my thoughts on Spiral and Godzilla vs. Kong, check out the pod. Thank you. If you happen to like the photoshops of Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade, please check them out on my Instagram page where I try and develop my photoshopping skills. That's skills with a Z. Hi guys, Matt here. Thank you for watching another Full Fat video. Don't forget to click that subscribe button and hit the bell so you know when a new video drops. If you'd like to get in touch with me, why not follow me on Twitter at FullFatVideos or on Instagram at Full_Fat_videos. A big personal thank you to our Full Fat tier patrons, Dr. Chike, Jax Merrick and Cyrus Sullivan. Your ongoing support keeps the lights on. Until
Look at that fleet.
So. Let's talk about some Star Wars.
There's nothing more important than knowing where you're going. And there are projects that I've worked on where we had some ideas, but we hadn't worked through them enough. Sometimes we had some ideas, but then we weren't allowed to do them the way we wanted to. We had, I've had all sorts of situations where you plan things in a certain way, and you suddenly find yourself doing something 180 degrees different, and then sometimes it works really well, and you feel like, wow, that really came together, and other times you think, oh my God, I can't believe this is where we are, and sometimes when it's not working out, it's because it's what you planned, and other times when it's not working out, it's because it didn't. It's like you never really know, but having a plan, I have learned in some cases the hard way, is the most, critical thing, because otherwise you don't know what you're setting up. You don't know what you're, what to emphasize, because if you don't know the inevitable of the story, you're just as good as your last, sequence or effect or joke or whatever. But you want to be leading something inevitable.
Fighting alongside Vader's
J.J. Abrams did
grandson.
an interview where he
There's
talked about
always
the
a
sequel
family
trilogy, and the reaction from a lot of
galaxy.
Star Wars fans have been divisive. I get always these days when anyone talks about the sequel trilogy to begin with. J.J. didn't want the sequels to end up the way they ended up. Honestly, even though I'm not a fan of The Last Jedi, and my complaints with the debates in The Rise of Skywalker, I'm sure no one can contrary to Ryan Johnson intended for reception of the sequel trilogy to be an endless bloodlust war between fans until the sun envelops us all and kills every single living thing in the entire spectrum of reality. At least I hope so. And like I always say, if you love the sequel trilogy, regardless of if it's just one movie or all the movies, so this brings me to the point of reflection, looking back at the sequel trilogy and wondering how the hell did we get here?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
They look at the stories and they said, we want to make things for the fans. So I said, all I want to do is tell the story of what happened. Started here, it's all about generations. It's about, the issues of father and son. Family soap opera. I mean, space opera. People don't realize it's actually a soap opera. And it's all about family problems. So they decided they didn't want to use the stories. They decided they were going to go do their own thing, and so I decided, fine. But basically, I'm not going to try to. They weren't that keen to have me involved anyway. But I said, I'm not going to. If I get in there, I'm just going to talk about it because they're not going to do what I want. So I don't have to. So I said, okay, I will.
First, we had George Lucas and his treatment, which he was going to turn into scripts for the sequel trilogy with Michael Hart. Unfortunately, he and George had a falling out before J.J., Ryan, and Colin were even hired. Well, of course, when things went down versus when they actually happened are two entirely different things that maybe the public will never know. Non-disclosure agreements and all that.
How many other lies have I been told by the council?
This habit of basically reusing concepts is something I've learned on Lucasfilm. But I can't even ignore Disney's habit of remaking everything and rewriting history. If you look at Disney's recent track record of remaking and reimagining their own catalog of animated films into live-action stories, it's not hard to imagine their mission statement for the sequel trilogy was repackage and resell.
Well, like NBA 2K, don't really change much. Okay? But
Joke me like you hate me, but you love me low-key, wanna date me when you fuck me.
Again, no shade, it's just kind of an invisible strategy they use for all their movies these days that aren't associated with Pixar or the MCU. Which, looking back at the trilogy movies, it is clear that all of them, yes, all of them, including The Last Jedi, follow visual and narrative beats from the original trilogy. Arnold did not work on a proper script, but moved on and Leia's kid. Rather, Arnold was first hired to write a long treatment based on George Lucas' story ideas, not a script. That story was done. Shortly after the buyout was announced, and George Lucas walked. From then on, Arnold was tasked with writing something completely different. He began in November 2012, and he worked on this story for 9 months. Approximately 1 year after the buyout, Arnold told Lucasfilm that he needed 18 more months to finish the script for episode 7. That was way too much time for a movie Disney wanted in theaters in 2015.
Okay, so we finally have a release date. Star Wars Episode 7 will be hitting theaters on December 18th, 2015. But for a moment there, we were all a little worried about Star Wars. Oscar winner and Hunger Games Catching Fire screenwriter pulled out of the project, leaving J.J. Abrams and co-writer Lawrence Katz to finish the script for the film, which apparently isn't finished yet. And even though 2015 seems like a reasonable amount of time to make a movie, it does have flies by, especially when you're making Hollywood. There it is. Abrams and Lucasfilm had kept the
That's our drop zone.
Push the release date to 2015, but Disney wouldn't budge and settled with them on a very late 2015 release date. So when Abrams was asked about having to jump on board with the writing, he basically said that the decision was because he was working with
Explosives on these Orbats have to reach the tower. Stay close. Everyone look out! TIE fighters!
So Larry took
Protect the orbit! Take down that tower!
Sam constantly ended up as were already being prepared. All these are on the story that we had worked on with the story. JJ and Castle dropped the full length of how the uncompleted script. Then went back and reread that, tweaking character animation, that being said, any changes they made couldn't be delivered.
Nothing will stop the return of the Sith! I've seen this. We have to clear out these groups and or back to the tower.
Because again, pre-production was about time I got to fight someone. Lawrence and JJ initially wanted to scratch, but there was just no time. And not the phrase I want you to remember as this video goes on. No time. Specifically, didn't give it the directors in charge. Which, if you're a fan of Solo, Star Wars, you'll remember the control production and how we set up vision back in even though most of the film had been shot with an entirely new director after the original director let go, and Ron Howard had come to replace him. Then there was the impression of the entire trilogy himself, but that notion was debunked the announcement that Ryan Johnson and Colin Farrell would be holding the sequels to The Force Awakens respectively. And it's understandable why JJ didn't want to come to the trilogy himself. Disney wanted these films out too quickly, especially when that one director was producing other projects unrelated to Star Wars and had a contract with Paramount Pictures. A contract that would really take $1 million for JJ Johnson writes his own movie before he didn't even JJ. He wanted to do Game of Thrones. Ryan was requesting these be changed for the Force Awakens to get the last draft. Some things changes yes on, others according to JJ. JJ put that on, the other was thrown out. Then we have The Last Jedi, and love or hate that movie, that's not what we're here to discuss. From the way Ryan talks and David saying that JJ's outline is going, whatever JJ wants training before the secret trilogy, it's into his film. And that's no shit, it's anyone's studio. Sometimes so it is very rare for a studio to do that when the first film of the trilogy was very successful. Well, successful as an audience, critical reception, as well as The Force Awakens being the highest grossing film of all time and to this day. But things this is where problems initially came from, because once you introduce a different narrative, a different vision, especially when the original vision was favored by many people, you create a dilemma where some of the audience members will start preferring one vision over the other. This is what did happen, because J.J. Abrams and Ryan Johnson are very two different filmmakers with their own very unique styles. Now, things get even more complicated when Episode 9 director Colin Farrell and co-writer David Connolly partnered with this film after stepping in right from the last draft that Derek worked on was given to the public eventually, but the draft of doing the space worked on to Colin's car show as Evan's public. The big problem with Colin's direction is that just like George was telling me that this trilogy of Force Awakens is that Ryan and Colin have been working with each other, and not just in the film. If you look at the because David Cage was supposed to be in this film, and much of it being used. You became pretty worthless to what they did. Utterly Skywalker returned to the future to confirm their co-writer personally. At this point, the actors like Harry versus years that the story would be changed. Skywalker even started.
That's not my story.
Ariel could have been so well. That was a change in the detail, but really respect, I should say. And I think he has a lot of And when I read the script, I mean, who knows what it will turn out to be, and I hope it's
How could this happen to me? I made my mistake.
This is really related to a Jedi family as well. No one really was sure this was going about. There were talks from returning about the film.
This I have the strength to do.
Stated that he rewrote the film more than any other script in his entire career. Writer Leakers began spying into story parts of the film, which made it seem like the Skywalker was the and I'm not here to point fingers at anyone to make up for Zach. This seems like it's just a problem because this film has since parting ways with George Lucas. The announcement. We change it.
I know what I have to do, but I don't
have the strength to do it. Pick it up again years later. And as much as this feels like
I'm here on Jedi business.
this is honestly just like no issue goes on major studios, from Warner Brothers to Sony to Disney itself. MCU is a very rare given it's awesome to get the fight. Love or hate the MCU movies, given those are on a tight ship production-wise, and Disney gives them a lot of trust to do what he wants to do. The MCU has been going on since 2008. Disney still only started pushing out films by 2015. By all reports, they needed a head robot to get the job done in the small time frame Disney gave them due to being so new. Like I said earlier in the video, time is a key factor in all of this. Time is something Disney never gave these films. Disney never took the time to think about if parting ways with George Lucas and his treatments was a good idea. If disregarding James' outline, having Ryan write a middle movie before even meeting JJ, allowing Colin to part ways with his film even though it was his story that the last show was leading into, or constantly forcing changes while roadblocking JJ's plans in The Rise of Skywalker was a good idea. At the time of me writing this, it's rather unknown what happened in the production of The Rise of Skywalker. There were studio demands way back that villains. There were family demands all over the place for redemptions, trio dynamics, and concepts that weren't properly developed already. Multiple rewrites, reshoots, those were the scenes of director's commentary, and a complete 180 from the cast after the reshoots were over and an early screening was shown to them. So, that leads us to where we are now. Looking back at the sequel trilogy, and as much as certain parties in the fandom would like to make this a witch hunt, if you follow the production of the sequel trilogy from the beginning till now, there really is no boogeyman making everything bad. At least not publicly, you never know what happens behind closed doors.
Scavenger girl is no match for the power in me.
What we have is a lot of people with a lot of different intentions, ideas, and even some stories, but no commitment to one vision, one plan. With George Lucas and his treatments, and it's unknown how these treatments would have turned out in the scripts, and considering
unlimited set. I can hold this forever. I am all the set.
Set up Force Awakens and his outline, which was thrown out. The only thing we know about JJ is that Lord Campbell is originally jump
In the documentary, you were very vocal on your distaste for Mr. Johnson's take on your character. And
There wasn't no distaste at all. It's just a loop that I didn't really understand. I mean, obviously, lots happened in between, but I had to, like I say, make up backstories besides picking, Kylo Ren, picking the new Hitler to be the next Pope. That's on me. But there had to be more to me to justify even cutting off my telepathic communication with my sister. So, I mean, but that's my job. I mean, I'm not the one that. And there were practical things. JJ had a much different vision for what was going to happen in 8. The first thing I said to Ryan is, I said, how are we going to explain me being in my Jedi ceremonial robes when I first meet Rey? You know, things like that to make sure that there was a flow.
The thing that JJ said to me when we first met, first meeting the first time, was that I imagine a journey of a character where it's almost the opposite, just isolating the original trilogy. The journey of someone who, the opposite of Vader. where Vader starts the most confident, the most experienced, and over the course of 3 films, is chipped away till he is his most vulnerable. He had the idea of starting someone at that place and doing almost the exact opposite. At the start of the
People are rising up all over the galaxy.
Someone who almost starts the most vulnerable and the most susceptible, and kind of gradually becomes more and more hardened with experience he's had. It's deeper and deeper.
And it's debatable if that was going to be good or bad, but at the very least, it would have been consistent to what J.J. already set up. In regards to Mark Hamill, who signed on to the sequel trilogy when George Lucas was still going to be doing the entire thing, and John Boyega, who signed on to the sequel trilogy when J.J. Abrams made The Force Awakens and left his outline, it seems like the sequel trilogy did not turn out the way they originally intended to from when they started, which is just something that happens when it comes to studios and contracts, like when Patty Jenkins parted ways with the MCU and exited Frontier, even though everything she was setting up for the story is what Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, and all the other stars were aware of when they signed on to do that. But again, contracts and studios, this is what happens. We have Rian Johnson with his middle chapter, The Last Jedi, which compared to everyone else, Brian was lucky enough to get the most time to craft his film. And as much as people like to say Brian wrote his story in stone and JJ just didn't enter that, and as of recently, the art was edited to remove the lightsaber and replace it with a blaster. And I'm not trying to make a conspiracy theory here, but I don't know really much concept art that randomly gets edited for a film that was released over a year ago. Finally, we have Rise of Skywalker, a film that seems to have been everything at one point, and I can't help but feel bad for JJ, who seems to be getting the most blame, because it's easier to blame one director than just reflect on Disney that rushed every aspect of this trilogy, and another studio that struggled to commit to an idea within the chaos of being rushed to death by Disney. It's also rather strange that so many people are going to bat for Disney. Guys, I know we all consume Disney products and there's literally no way to escape them, but it's Disney and they really don't have the moral high ground most of the time. Here's really if you look back at this trilogy, when Iger said they would be adapting George Lucas' stories to go with that, you have a lot of people who said planning didn't matter. We shouldn't be coming into these films with expectations, but everyone accepts that this way of thinking for the film was a giant mistake, especially considering the expectation that people have is that they were really competently made and make sense together. Like I said, if you want to spite of the troll productions, more power to you. I'm happy you're happy about these films. This isn't a video to rain on anyone's parade. But as I'm sitting here reflecting on a trilogy that struggled to define its own story due to its story always changing visuals, writers, and intentions, J.J. Abrams getting everything from not just I hate Death Threats, John Boyega being sidelined, and hating Death Threats, Hillary Tran, Naomi Ackie, Daisy Ridley, Oscar Isaac, Adam Driver, Donald Gleason, and all the other actors being targeted by people who blame them for writing their films and getting way too much hate and criticism thrown their way. The media and bloggers hyping up the J.J. versus Ryan Epstein director war that drags multiple fans. A fandom split into pieces even among fans of the sequel trilogy, and I can't help but think this all could have been avoided if Disney just committed to one vision for the sequel trilogy and gave the creators enough time to make it. Real talk, I would have rather had J.J. Abrams do the entire sequel trilogy himself while taking notes on the story from George Lucas. That way, J.J. and whatever co-writer he wants to work with could deliver a consistent trilogy, better or worse. Meanwhile, George Farrell and Rian Johnson could work on their own anthology films and not have to worry about conflicting visions on this whole director versus director war. OT fans love the original trilogy, PT fans love the prequel trilogy, Filoni fans love Rebels and the Clone Wars and basically anything with his name on it, because it's all consistent with its own story, with its own vision. But sequel trilogy fans have so many different factions, and very few of them all love the sequel trilogy. And you can't even blame them, because this is what happens when you introduce so many different visions and narratives into one story. All I'm saying is this: love or hate the sequels, what the films needed, not just for their own sake, but for the sake of the fans of the trilogy and the people working on them, was consistency, was a plan. And that's all JJ was saying from his interview about how he wished these films had a plan, because he knows how it affected everyone who worked on the trilogy, everyone who was fans of it.
This story begins with a piece of trash. It ends with sustainable aviation fuel. But this isn't a story about throwing something away.
Be on guard, and remember your training.
One of my favorite topics to talk about.
Now, racism in Star Wars is nothing new for any Star Wars actor. The Force Awakens with John Boyega, The Last Jedi with Hilary Swank, The Rise of Skywalker with Naomi Ackie, The High Republic with Christina Ariel, and as of recently, The Kenobi Show with Moses Ingram. Now, I'm going to be pretty blunt when I say this. There's no place for racism in this world or in Star Wars. You may try to revise history, but Star Wars has been social, political, commentary, to Star Wars. And those stories have been friends. And they're connected to George Lucas.
Interesting in Star Wars are the rebels. They're using asymmetric force. How they organize. Call them Mujahideen, call them outside. When I did it, they were Viet Cong. Exactly. So were you thinking of that? Yes. So it was a very anti-authoritarian, very kind of 60s against the man kind of thing, nested deep inside of a fantasy or a colonial. You know, we're fighting the largest empire in the world. But the state states skin hats don't know that. And it's the same thing with the Vietnamese. The irony of that one is in both of those, the little guys won. Right. And the big, highly technical empire, the English Empire, right? The English Empire, the American Empire, lost. Yeah. That was the whole point. That's us not profiting from the lesson of history, because you look at the inception of this country, and it's a very noble fight of the underdog against the massive empire. You look at the situation now, where America is so proud of being the biggest economy, the most powerful country. It's become the empire. From the perspective of a lot of people around the world, the empire but we never learned, you know, from England or Rome or a dozen other empires that went on for hundreds of years or sometimes thousands of years. We never got it. We never said, wait, this wasn't the right thing to do. And we're still struggling with it. And they fall because of failure of leadership or government often. You have a great line, which is, this is how liberty dies. Exactly. There was a condemnation of populism in a scientific context. That's a theme that runs all the way through Star Wars.
That was always George Lucas's intent when making these movies. To have Star Wars not reflect our world aesthetically in terms of like the looks of the world, but the struggle and triumphs and the eternal battle we all face living in this world. With democracy, about freedom. That is something that is always there. Likewise about these issues are current and are just as relevant now as they were back then. The problem here is that the situation regarding racism in Star Wars goes much deeper. To put it bluntly, Star Wars has done a terrible job at treating their black characters with any respect and as equals to that of their white characters in recent memories in modern Star Wars. And Lucasfilm has done an even worse job with their actors and treating them like they mattered in comparison to their white co-stars. Lucasfilm has done a shit job with protecting their actors and treating them like they matter. Whether credit is due, the situation regarding Moses Ingram was the first time I think anyone can Lucasfilm and Star Wars actually stand. No, we are not moving 2020, so we stand with John Boyega. We just sidelined him in the trilogy, made him small on the international posters for The Force Awakens, kept him small for the posters of The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, kept him off the teaser posters for both films.
Raggedy bitch.
John Boyega said, it's so difficult to maneuver. You get yourself involved in projects, and you're not necessarily going to like everything. But what I would say to Disney is do not bring out a black character, market them to be more important in the franchise than they are, and then have them pushed to the side. It's not good. I'll say that straight. John Boyega is talking about the character former stormtrooper who wielded a lightsaber in the first film before being somewhat nudged to the background. But he is also talking about other people of the cast of color. Naomi Ackie, Hilary Swank, and even Oscar Isaac, who he feels suffered the same treatment. He is acknowledging that some people will say he is crazy or he is making it. But the reordered character hierarchy of The Last Jedi was particularly hard to take. Like, you guys knew what to do with Daisy Ridley, you knew what to do with her, you knew what to do with these people when it came to when it came to John Boyega, you knew fuck all. So what do you want me to say? What they want you to say is, I enjoyed being part of it, it was a great experience. Nah. I'll take that deal when it's a great experience. They gave all the nuance to Adam Driver, all the nuance to Daisy Ridley. Let's be honest. Daisy knows this, Adam knows this, everybody knows this. I'm not exposing anything. They're always scared. They're always freaking sweating. Everybody needs to leave my boy JJ alone. He wasn't even supposed to come back and try to save this shit.
You raggedy bitch.
And that's what John Boyega said regarding his time with the sequel trilogy. But he basically lays out that he was unhappy with his treatment from Disney with this film. I mean, they even sent the guy to PR training.
Whatever tomorrow demands of you.
Oh, I'm too black.
You'll be.
It's negative.
Oh, did you not know that? But maybe that was just John Boyega's film. A one-time terrible display of industry racism from Disney, but it was just that. The house sacrifices herself and dies in the first third of the movie, but Newton says that wasn't originally how the scene was going to play out. She told Inverse, I felt disappointed by Star Wars, so my character was killed. And actually, in the script, she wasn't killed. It happened during filming, and it was much more than just with the time we had to do the scenes. It was much easier to come and die than it is actually falling back sometime. That's what it originally was. That the explanation, and she falls out, and we don't know where she's gone. So it could have come back at some point. But when we came to filming, as far as I was concerned and was aware, when it came to the filming of that scene, it was too huge of a set piece to create. So they just had to blow me up, and I was done. Newton also spoke of Radio Times about the significance of her role in Solo in 2018. I'm the first woman of color to have a prominent role in the Star Wars legacy. There have been others with one line. Lupita Nyong'o was a completely genuine character in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, but you didn't get to see the color of her skin. I'm the first. I'm going to have a toy and everything. It's exciting, but that's all I can say. It's a big deal. Randy Newton was not pleased with the end result of Val. She said in an interview with Inverse, but I remembered at the time thinking, this is a big mistake. Not because of me, not because I wanted to come back. You don't kill off the first black woman to ever have a real role in a Star Wars movie. Like, are you fucking joking? But maybe that was just Andy Newton and John Boyega. Maybe Lando was treated better in the film. Or maybe he was treated like every black stereotype who had to cheat to be Han Solo in a game of cards, got his right booted, had a dad that walked out of him, was raised by a single mother, and is portrayed as an overly sexual person to the point of having sex with a fucking toaster. Okay, maybe Forrest Whitaker's Saw Gerrera in Rogue One had a great role with an extensive, long character arc. Well, if you could tell me anything you did after the extensive reshoot of Rogue One besides die randomly, I'd love to hear it. What about Michael K. Williams in Solo: A Star Wars Story? Oh wait, the extensive reshoots of Solo: A Star Wars Story took him out of the project, though it would have been another instance of a black character being an antagonist and dying in introduction. Which really asks the question here, is it better to be a black hero in Disney Star Wars, even though it means you're always going to be in the background tier of your counterparts, and usually be a supporting character at best, and sometimes a major character who's still in the background. And what happens when Star Wars actors try to shed light on these situations? Their displeasure with being treated this way.
When John Boyega did it, he was met with a lot of support from Black Star Wars fans, fans of his character in general, and many people outside of the Star Wars community. But inside the Star Wars community, you had people telling John Boyega that he was wrong about his experiences working on the sequel trilogy, that he was mistaken about being sidelined in The Last Jedi, and that he just didn't understand his role in that film or The Force Awakens, and that he was always a minor character. He was always in his head. And the only fault he should take is with The Rise of Skywalker, despite saying that J.J. Abrams always had his back, and that J.J. Abrams was the main reason he was casting Force Awakens. People just told John Boyega that he didn't really understand his role, and that they did better. John's criticism of his siding in The Last Jedi was he's talking to himself. Boyega was critical on the relationship between Ray and Kylo, which resulted in John being verbally harassed and slandered. Not to be one to confuse, John cited the clap back. Very beautiful. This is also the case with Andy Newton in regard to her feelings towards her treatment in Solo. Not many people knew how to respond to a black woman criticizing the handling of her character. So many disregarded what she said at best and insulted her at worst. Why? Because her critical opinions made the film look bad in relation to her. So of course she didn't matter anymore to those people. If Andy Newton said she loved working on Solo and it was a pleasure, she would be talked about more. But since she was critical of the film because of how it treated her, she is basically ignored entirely. Sometimes people just don't care. They make it up to do. This would also translate over to anyone who is critical over the treatment of these characters in the community and critical of the way people in the Star Wars community talk about them, which would often end up with certain groups in the Star Wars community seeing them as pariahs. There are a lot of reasons why there are so few black Star Wars fans active in the community with a large one. Number one, the racism that actors like John Boyega have faced just made it completely alienating to be a part of Star Wars. No one wants to give an escape from real life Number two, many black Star Wars fans aren't often recruited out there if they don't go along with certain characters. There is a very strong platform to inside of the outside the community to only acknowledge white Star Wars characters and things. If you don't go along with the status quo, you are not seen as important. Star Wars is for everyone as long as you agree with the powers that be. There should be an understanding that what is racist, anti-black, dog whistling microaggressions, and the general attitude of treating black people as secondary to non-blacks, not just whites. It's the fact that if black people don't say or act like how you want them to act, they do not matter in your eyes. As of right now, there really aren't any black protagonists left. Disney Lucasfilm has more or less chosen to abandon black POV characters and has committed to making them supporting characters. Mandela Stern therapy played the role the scenes act like, and it's unknown if this role is writers or a major leading role. I think it's face, but really who knows? That production is another thing to talk about another day. Donald Glover's Lando Calrissian series has been put on hold till the foreseeable future. The ball is in Donald's court for some reason, according to Lucasfilm, but I don't see him returning to Star Wars anytime soon. Given the track record of how they have created differences with their filmmakers and their iffy production schedules, I don't think Donald Glover wants to subject himself to any of that. And as of recently, you have Moses Ingram's Reva, and I'm hoping they treat the character well. But if he does go back to his Star Wars. The supporting hero who doesn't get to do much but better not outshine the white heroes, God help them, or the black antagonist. So how do we fix the racist problem? The community has been in the best way to fight against racism in the Star Wars community is one, give support to the black instead of talking over them, fighting for them, or acting like they don't. If you actually care about representation in Star Wars, if you actually care about what happens to black people in Star Wars and any character in Star Wars, you should actually let them talk and stop talking for them. 2, acknowledge that Lucasfilm has to do better by their black characters and characters of color. It shouldn't be a race to see which Star Wars fan can be the biggest ally for whatever message they don't properly understand.
but make it known that there is no difference between any of us, that we all deserve a seat at the table to be treated as equals. That means fighting against explicit racism by bigots and trolls, and fighting against racism by the entertainment industry, which Disney and Lucasfilm themselves have been a part of, and you cannot go forward by action. Whatever what happened to black people, without acknowledging that Lucasfilm has done dirty. Don't just speak up against racism when it's easy, and the influencer thing to do when it's comfortable and okay. Speak up when it means going against the grain, when it means going against the status quo. That's all I got. Thank you for watching today's video. Thank you for being a part of this community and my life. If you want to support the show, consider smashing that like button and subscribe button. You can also support the channel and me by joining my Patreon for as well as $1 a month. Special shout out
to those dedicated to making an impact in the lives of others.
The reality of nature and God and life is that things come and things go. They do not stay in your life. You have to learn to accept the fact that things will be there and they won't be there. So enjoy them and love them while they're there, and then be happy that they are someplace else. But you have to decide that you can't hold up that the pain of losing somebody or losing something is your pain. It's not the pain of that person. Your pain of losing that person, and you have to be able to overcome it. Otherwise, you're just
So I've heard a lot about the franchise as time went on, and the most recurring thing I hear from people when they talk about Star Wars is how it's different, regardless of if that's being said in good context or bad. And those people are right. Star Wars has always been in a state of constant change and evolution. What it was in 1977, when A New Hope came out, isn't what it was right now.
Do not underestimate my power.
And even though I haven't been picking up Star Wars,
I sense it. Of course.
Mostly because I did grow up with Star Wars. I have been a fan of little itty-bitty. It's through that upbringing that I was able to watch it. When I was walking with a friend, that I realized that and by talking. But yeah. What I realized is that just as Star Wars went from a standalone trilogy to Star Wars, you could almost call it we have more Star Wars than the episodic series, but the anthology, animated show, live action show.
Sorry, I tried, but
comics, novels, YouTube shorts, a theme park, America, anywhere. That's we have reached that point in time where folks are going to be arguing about best film. Why are we still here? There is a literal day dedicated to Star Wars. At this point, Star Wars has become its own animal, even in the context of most franchises. This is ironic because Star Wars isn't the box office or cultural juggernaut it used to be. The last Star Wars film that I can honestly say left a positive point was The Force Awakens.
Excuse me. What the fuck did you just say?
What themes the movie, you would be lying if you told me you did not hear about The Force Awakens. Most people I see in my day-to-day life, the bus driver, the taxi driver, the Uber, the clown that mugs me down the street now. That might be films, of course, but the shows have started to leave more in. But that's a discussion for another day and I'm sure a conversation. But hey, the more you get in common, the better it is to be humble. There's been a saying tossed around on social media for a while. Ever since the device was and that saying is all Star Wars which was created in the aftermath. And let's just say that motto has been pushed to its limit and even abandoned by certain parties. Ironically, the most notable of that has been many fans of The Last Jedi who have used the most. Why did many fans of The Last Jedi abandon the motto that well, because there's too much Star Wars. Working out that to critics. There's also the fact that some of those people considered Star Wars from a certain capacity. So when Star Wars shows a little